Okay, go ahead.
All right, well, welcome to everyone. I see people are still coming into the meeting, but we have a wonderful turnout for our Linked Open Data Community of Practice Working Group community gathering today. I am Ken Varnum at the University of Michigan Library, and I'm a member of the Community of Practice Working Group. And it's my honor to be moderating this discussion. Getting started with LC BIBFRAME data in Alma. So this session is being recorded, and we ask that as you have questions, either now or as we go through the day or through this hour, that you please use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask those questions, and we will get to those along with questions that were submitted earlier through the Google Doc that was shared in the invitations and the announcements of this session. And we'll try to cover all of them. And if we aren't able to, we will do our best to follow up and post answers at the end, probably in that Google Doc. So please bear with us. We have a number of questions already submitted, and we look forward to an informative session. What we're going to be doing today, if I can get the slides to advance, because we shared the materials, kind of the reading, the homework with all of you in advance of the session. We won't be going through that in detail, but we will be inviting each of our three panelists to first introduce themselves in turn, and then to give just a very brief summary of the materials they shared. And we expect that we will have a very lively discussion after about maybe 15 or so minutes of summary, where the floor will be open to you, and we will be able to have a good discussion about these topics and things that we are all experimenting with. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Heather, who is going to be doing her summary first, and the floor is yours. Would you like me
Hi.
to share screen with you, or stop sharing so you can pick it up?
Sure. If you could stop
Or,
sharing, I'll be wanting to share my screen here in
of
a
course.
minute. First I wanted to reintroduce myself. Hello, I'm Heather Pretty. I'm a cataloging librarian at Memorial University of Newfoundland. And in the recording that I prepared in advance, I presented on using the Ex Libris API Console, adding, updating, and deleting BibFrame records by the each. So a quick summary of that presentation was first off, in order to use an API to add, update, and delete BibFrame records from Alma, you must first enable BibFrame features in your Alma sandbox production or both. And you can do that by contacting Ex Libris we've provided some kind of a guidelines outline on how to do that. The other thing that you need is to set up an API key with read-write access to your sandbox or production. And then once you have that done, through the API console to add a BibFrame work instance pair to Alma, you first go get the BibFrame work instance pair from id.loc.gov, and you then convert the two files to Alma's API XML format and add a bit of coding to the beginning and end of the records. And then you post them to your sandbox or production using the API console. So as a bit more of review of my presentation, I'll be going live to the API console and addressing in part at least some of the questions that have already been posted to that Google document. So just a minute and I will share my screen. Okay. Sorry, I'm just having, there we go. All right, so we're at Library of Congress. So the nature of the questions that I was looking at on the Google Doc are one of the main ones that I saw and that I'm quite interested in as well is linking two instances to a single work within Alma. So I'm going to focus on that in this live demonstration. And also noting part of the questions were, you know, a print record versus an electronic record. What do those look like in Alma? And then searching in Alma as well. So we're looking at a piece of, this is a book of literary criticism of Ellen Montgomery's Emily of New Moon. So this is now, we're looking at the BIBFRAME work. And my apologies, I wanted to start from this version of the BIBFRAME work. So you can see we're looking at a BIBFRAME work. It has a corresponding instance. So if we click on the instance, then here we are in the instance. You can see that this is one online resource. You can also see from the 3XX fields that it's an online resource. So the interesting thing about BIBFRAME work pairs, which Stefan mentioned in his presentation, is that in id.loc.gov, they use the same identifier. So here, if you look up in the URL, you'll see this identifier ends in 6169. And from the URL, we can see that this is an instance. So if we go back to the work, be looking in the URL, and you will see that it is that same identifier, but now it's saying that it's a work. Okay, so this is the work instance pair for the online version of this book of criticism. So it has an other physical format. So you can either click here or click on print version. And you'll see now we're in a BIBFRAME work. The title looks the same, but if you look up here in the URL, you'll see that it's a different identifier ending in 2567. So if we come to the instance as well, as you would be expected, this is another work instance pair, and this is now an instance ending in 2567. So for the purposes of this demonstration, and I would likely call this a situation where the two instances should be joined to a single work to make things more efficient in terms of linked data, then what I would want to do is I would want to download using the RDF XML compact, as I showed you in the recording. So I'd want to download that. And then I would also want to go back to the online version ending in 6169, and I would download this BIBFRAME work. I'm wanting to use this one as my work record, and then I would go to the 6169 instance and download that as well. So I've already done that. So here you can see this is the work ending in 6169. Here is the, up here at the top, you can see this is instance ending in 6169. And here on line 88, it's pointing to that it's an instance of the BIBFRAME work ending in 6169. So if we go to the second instance, this one here at the top, this is an instance ending in 2567. And if we want to point it to, let's see if I was clever enough. All we have to do is change that to match the number of the other work. Okay, so then we would come in, as I showed, to the API console. You come to post, try it out, and we would delete this, add in our work copy, and then we would click execute. So for the interest of time, I've already done that. So I entered the RDF XML for the work. I entered the XML for the first instance, added that. The work for the record for the second instance, added that. And you can see now it's in my Alma, Ella Montgomery's Emily of New Moon. And here it has 2 instances, whereas this one, The Day the World Came to Town, this one only has 1 instance. So if we jump to the bottom of the record, you can also see that Alma is indicating that one of those instances is a physical, and one of those instances is electronic. All right, I'm looking at the time. I think I have a few more minutes. So that was a single work with 2 instances. Oh, there was a question about, can you import the same work multiple times? So you'll see that Emily of New Moon is already in here. I've added the work here into the API console. So now if I click execute, then it's coming down and showing me a 400 error bad request. And it's a little bit tiny, but it's saying matched work records exist in the catalog with ID. And there's our MMS ID for that work. There was another question about MARC and BibFrame records sitting side by side in the catalog. So I just wanted to show you, for The Day the World Came to Town. Well, if we look up the title, Day the World Came to Town. So there it is. This shadowed one is our BibFrame record. And if I grab this ISBN and copy it, then you can see that there's we have a BibFrame instance record, and this should be our MARC record. So matching on the same ISBN, sitting side by side in the catalog. Okay. I think that's the end of my time. So I think next is going over to Jim, unless Ken would like to jump in the interim.
Nope. Jim, please take over from here.
Okay. Yes, hello everyone. Jim Han. I work for the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. I'm the head of metadata research, but what I'm going to talk about is actually using both an editor, the Marva editor, and I'm going to talk about how sort of the progression of Alma is like a multi-format system. So this is a bit of a review over the video that I presented earlier. So I'm just going to pull out some of the highlights that I think are sort of valuable for people to know about. And I would say, what I'm going to underscore here is I'll review the BibFrame format in Alma, but then I'll also talk a little bit about BibFrame editing, because I think perhaps I'm working with my colleagues at Penn, we've done a lot of exploration on metadata creation with editors, and really some exciting work from Library of Congress in terms of the Marva Quartz editor. And I'll just try to draw out some of the highlights from there. Um, so yeah, Ex Libris put out these statements around, I would say, yeah, it was May 2024. So around that time, oh, I guess it's almost a year now, Alma became a multi-format system. So, that was a really exciting moment. I know as soon as, this became generally available, we began sort of plotting how we would begin testing out BibFrame in production. And we did that in the fall. But this is available now, and so that was really exciting. And we worked in an Alma linked data focus group set up by Ex Libris for a year leading up to this. So it really is the culmination of a lot of testing and trial and error, and working through getting this ready for general availability. So one thing that you've probably seen already. In Almas, you've probably seen BibFrame converted from Mark. And I just want to contrast that and sort of draw out a contrast of the different kind of BibFrame that you might see in Alma. So BibFrame converted from Mark, it's been available for a while, but um, there's also, this is an instance that I sent into our Penn Alma sandbox. So this is a BibFrame resource that was edited in Marva, exported to the Alma sandbox. So it wasn't converted from Mark. In fact, what actually happened is from the instance and the work, a Mark um, a Mark representation can be generated on the fly. So actually the inverse is happening here. Yeah, so the API in Alma, I think others will talk about this, but I think there's like, some things that people can build upon, which is that it's not significantly different from current APIs in Alma. So if you've created Mark records through an API by posting like a Mark XML structure, it's some of that can be reused, and others are going to speak on this. So I'll probably just use the rest of my short highlight reel here just to talk about BibFrame editing. Um, and Marva Quartz is really exciting. I learned about a lot of this functionality probably last November 2024. I think Library of Congress had talked about this at the BibFrame tactical meeting at Library of Congress, and I I was really excited to see some of the functionality that's available. And so you can try this out. And if you use the Jupyter notebook I made available here, you could actually create some resources at bibframe.org, then use those URLs in that Jupyter notebook. This is something that I like about the editor is you can see sort of the form, filling out the form, you can see the RDF, and then you can also see how it's converted. Now, this is a little old because the conversions are now 2.9 is officially out, and then there's a preview of 2.10. So some of these are kind of old conversions, but I think this is the type of these are the types of views, and they're configurable here that our catalogers are interested in using. And then, once you were to save this, actually, I guess I can't point with my finger. Right here, this is like an identifier for this description, and you can access it if you complete this URL here, and that's just going to give you your RDF, but it's of the web, it's on the web. So what you can do is you can send that into Alma actually. Um, and I think some others are going to talk about that. So I'll just conclude by sort of what are some techniques to find these quickly. And one thing you can do is if you've sent the URI in, if you have like id.loc.gov, you can search by title URI. So when I searched there, then it brought up the record because basically that's how it's indexing these. So that's sort of the highlight reel of my talk. I think we'll have some time here for question and answering, but I do want to send it along to the next presenter to talk a little bit more about the APIs that can give more of a deep dive there. So I'll stop sharing. And
All right, thank you very much, Jim. And now Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Stefan Schuh. I'm from the Austrian Library Network. I'm a metadata analyst there. My job is to do data imports, exports, data consistency work, and data interchange between German-speaking library networks. And my tutorial that I did is more of a written tutorial, although I have made a video which speaks through it. It's in a nutshell, it's thought as a starting point for creating your own Python scripts to import BIBFRAME data from the Library of Congress into Alma. So there's not much of a presentation here because it's all text and not much to look on, at least if you're not a text guy like me. But it's why should I make a Python script when I can use Jim's notebook, which is certainly better software? My thought was if I have to import records over and over, so I can make a script which I just have to feed a list of identifiers and don't have to paste it into a notebook over and over again. So I can automate it or stuff like that. So in the tutorial and in the GitHub repository that is associated with it, there's some Python code. It's not much, but it's a little, and there's the heart of it are some Python functions which help you to get data from the Library of Congress and pre-process it so Alma can ingest it via its API. And that's pretty much all of it. If you have written through the tutorial or have followed the tutorial by pasting the code into your Python interpreter. So there are functions there. There's a walkthrough through one example to paste into your interpreter. And which is not in the video, there's an example command line interface program, a small one. So as a starting point where you can specify the Library of Congress numbers at the command line, which you want to import. And you have a command line flag to delete them again. So you don't have to search for new identifiers every time you try something out. I just wanted to, for those, I just assumed that some of you might have already read this tutorial. It would be too much for the time frame here to do it again. Some things that I have stumbled upon, which might be interesting for you if you do a similar thing or take it as a starting point, is that, as Heather said, the Library of Congress identifier. The tutorial just uses this bare number, which is reused by the Library of Congress for works and instances. So that's something to consider if you tweak the script to do other things, that it's not the whole identifier which you pass to the program, but just the number part, and then you tell it if it's a work or instance. This could eventually break down if Library of Congress starts to tweak their URLs, maybe. So be warned. The most interesting thing I found out was when updating the data from Alma. So I've pushed Library of Congress BibFrame into Alma and got it back out from Alma, tweaked it a bit and wanted it to put it back in. And as I do it, it's just I take the response from Alma, mangle the response and put it back in and change as little as possible so I can be sure that the API XML is in the form that Alma expects. But Alma does not ingest its own output. It's written in the tutorial, and Jim helped me spot it. You have to tell Alma, which is a multi-format system, which record format to expect. And it's LCBF underline work or LCBF underline instance. And when you get it back from Alma, it's LC underline BF underline work, which is not valid for Alma itself. I have to tell Ex Libris that. But if you come across that, and if you just put it back in, you do not get an error, but it just posts an empty record. So you have a record without metadata in it. Something you should think about when you wondering why your record has become empty all of a sudden. Maybe it's that. These were my findings. If you have questions, you can ask them. And yeah, I'm pretty much done. And I think I'm in time too.
Thank you very much, Stefan. There's a question in the Q&A which I accidentally said I would answer live, meaning to answer in text so I can actually paste in links. Sorry about that, Laura. I will get those pasted in. Shelley, do you have access to the group, the whole chat, so we can share those links? I do not have access to that as a panelist to send something to everybody. But with that, I will share the links to the presentations for those who might need them. They were also in the email announcements and reminders for this presentation, so you can look through there as well. Now we have quite a bit of time left, which is as designed for questions and answers. Jim, thank you very much for answering a few of the questions that have come in by mail or through the chat already. We have a couple of questions that are open, and I will ping pong between those and the unanswered questions from the Google Doc. But we'll start with Laura's question in the Q&A, which is, BibFrame experts, is there any reason why the electronic and print are treated as different BF works? In RDA speak, is there something that makes them different expressions?
I have a theory about this. My theory is that when LC was converting their MARC records to BibFrame works and instances, they did it by each MARC record. So if there was a different MARC record for the electronic format and a different MARC record for the print format, then that's why there are the different identifiers.
Jim or Stefan, have any other thoughts you want to add?
I think so too. In RDA speak, these are two separate expressions and not a new work. At least I would teach it that way. I hope I'm right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not an RDA expert, and I guess I would just say like, yeah, I think this is, maybe you already know this in your question, is that I think it's been suggested that like, well, in BibFrame, the work is more like the RDA expression, and so I think that's consistent with what Stefan was saying. And when you want to step up to the RDA work, that's not the same as the BibFrame work. The RDA work is has some things in common with the hub, depending on the hub. So there are different. The hub has different roles. One kind of way a hub could. Some hubs have the role of the RDA work, but not all. So yeah, I've been thinking about how to make some proposals for some object properties that would help clarify those roles for the hub. So I still have to do that.
All right. Let me turn to questions in the Google Doc that was open for posting. I think, Heather, you may have already covered a couple of these, but so just tell me if you already answered it, if I'm not seeing the connection. So we have a question to demonstrate the situation of the same work in print and ebook formats. Did you cover? I don't believe you covered that in your quick summary. I may have missed it.
I mean, I did show the electronic work versus the print work, and I think I noted that it was that question was demonstrated.
Okay, sorry, that was my that was me not noticing that you did that as opposed to you not doing it. Are there other questions in that doc that you haven't that were not addressed?
I think I saw one that I kind of wanted to talk about, but I don't know if it's an issue quite yet. And this is, I saw a question, someone sent us a question before the session, and it was about, if we get BibFrame, like BibFrame copy from a vendor, and we send that into Alma. Is it, what's going to happen if we already have the record there? Does it overwrite? And actually, it does depend on what is in the URI, because that's how it's deciding that this is duplicate. I mean, of course you can have settings for your import profile. So assuming that you haven't configured like any import profiles here, I don't think you'll find, like, just in general, it's not going to decide that it's matching. Like if you have a rule for matching, it's not going to decide that it's the same resource if it doesn't have the same URI. So that's how because we can update, we are able to say update an instance, update a work. That's possible, but the way that you do that is by sending in the resource that has the exact same URI for, like, that BibFrame URI or that instance URI. That's how we know it's an update if it's the same. So I hope that kind of starts to address it. I'm curious to hear if people are getting BibFrame data from publishers, because that would be an exciting that would be exciting if that's happening. I don't know if we see that issue quite yet, but I'm excited for that world to happen.
All right. Thank you. And if anybody does have examples, please let us know. There is a comment directly for a question, comment directly for you, Stefan, from Adina Marciano at Clarivate, saying the ingest problem you noted. Send them a note with an email address to let them know what is going on, which records are causing, or how you're doing that.
Oh yeah,
so they can fix it.
I'm very sorry. I didn't want to point out Ex Libris on this, but I had to tell it, and I didn't get around to tell them before this session. I sure will do. Thanks for attending, Adina.
All right, and Jim, I see you're writing an answer back to Laura's question here. Do you want to just answer it out loud for the?
Well, I guess,
Or
yeah, I guess the reason why I've kind of glitched out in responding, and that's that's because I'm not sure if we answered the part, if this was sent before we started talking or afterwards, but what I heard Stefan say, and I think I agree with, was that when you have like in RDA, these are at the expression level. So I think we're saying that it's the bib framework at the expression level. So I'm not sure if I hope that we've clarified that, but if there's something still confusing about it, um, like, do you have more, like, is there something else we should speak to, I guess is what I'm wondering. So maybe maybe I should, that was going to be my question to Laura. Yeah.
are there? Oh, let's see. Sorry. Another question from Laura, which is maybe perhaps a more general question to all. An old trick in a previous system was to change the Alma identifier for the entity or record to the new one you want to match and overlay it. Has anyone tried that? I'm not sure if that's anyone on the panel or anyone in the audience.
Change. I think our technique has been, if there's something, something with the identifier that's wrong, I think we've kind of removed that and then re-added. That's been our technique. But let's see. We can't actually edit. Well, so yeah, I think the reason why we can't actually do this exact approach is just like currently, although Ex Libris is making their own editor, if you want to edit BibFrame, you have to like go over to your editor or go over to your text editor or your linked data editor, make those changes, and then re-upload them with the API. Now that's the only way you can change the BibFrame that's in there right now. So if there's some situation where you need a workaround, we've had to just delete if if we run into like a problem because we can't actually change the XML from within Alma. We have to send it in through the API. So hopefully I was clear about that. I happy to follow up if there's additional questions.
All right. And we have another follow-up comment from Adina at Clarivate. To expand on what Jim explained, the matching point is the about URI or same as URI. And if there is a match, the record will be updated. As Alma is a multi-format system, we are researching the options for title matching between formats. This is a tricky area to tackle, but we understand the need. So thank you for that extra detail.
That's interesting, exciting, and a little scary all at once.
No. All right. I'm not sure if there are any questions that I am not seeing in the participant chat. I'm not seeing that. So here we have a new question from Jill Sturkowski. It looks like everyone on this panel was working with BibFrame containing URIs from Library of Congress. Any thoughts on how URIs from WorldShare entities will be handled in Alma? Should we focus on getting LCIDs into MARC and BibFrame?
Yeah, you can actually I'm curious to hear what others that I'll just say that in terms of like interoperability, and there's like a whole working group on interoperability, but I think, after looking at how various systems will send BibFrame around, it seems very obvious to me that now it seems obvious to me after doing this that the closer we can stick to the Library of Congress structure for BibFrame, the better off interoperability will be. So the more you deviate from that, the trickier it'll be to like sync with OCLC. Now, I think what's really excellent is that almost very close to it, it's basically the LC structure. It is. And then OCLC wants that structure too. So I haven't actually taken a URI from WorldShare entities, but what's really exciting is that what we've tested out is we've tested out sending our data that we sent into Alma to OCLC. And actually the structure that OCLC is expecting is this structure from Library of Congress. So I believe like if you send in an OCLC WorldShare entity, and I haven't tested this, I think that the interoperability is gonna be pretty good. Now, getting LCIDs, I think there's a long-winded way of me saying that I think we should reuse existing URIs wherever possible. And I think that this probably comes into play more so with works. If we can reuse wherever those existed, if they are already existing, I think we should use them. Perhaps the strategy is a little different with instances and with the resources you're cataloging. But I think if we can all, as a community, agree that BibFrame works, we don't need to be creating so many of those. We can go to some of these larger BibFrame producers. I think that's the strategy to realize some of the benefits of linked data in terms of like not having to rekey things, referencing existing URIs. And I believe, I have faith that the Library of Congress and OCLC will keep these relatively stable. But I'm curious what others think about those BibFrame producers.
Stefan or Heather, do you have any thoughts on this one, or should we move on to the next? All right.
I was too slow too. But I'm very curious about the BibFrame that is produced from the Library of Congress and OCLC2. We in the German-speaking countries we have our Mark dialect is very different from the American Mark dialect, and we fear that our BibFrame dialect will be deviating too because of other cataloging traditions, hierarchical descriptions of multi-part stuff and things like that. So we cannot really reuse Library of Congress Mark now one to one. So maybe it will get easier with BibFrame. I am skeptical, but hopeful at the same time because linked data is, well, it just promises that. We'll see if it fulfills the promise.
All right. Excuse me. A question from Mackenzie Johnson. Are there concerns about LC work instance pairs sharing the same ID aside from what Stefan noted about if LC changed their practices?
Well, I think the existence of a work and an instance with the same ID is an artifact of mark conversion. Because if you think it through, if you will not have, you will not always have one work and one corresponding instance and one work and one corresponding instance, because I just thought about that work and expression thingy. An ebook is not another expression. It's another manifestation. So that would be at the instance level, not at the work level. Because it's just another physical format for the same expression, the same language and stuff like that. So I just mentioned that ID number problem from a technical standpoint, but from the also from the data model, I don't think that in the model of BibFrame, it's thought that every work has exactly one instance. So I have on my sheet, and I have forgotten to read it, that if you get the BibFrame work from the Library of Congress, that it would be prudent to delete the has instance elements from it because you do not know what instances it will have in the future. Because you cannot assume that there's one work, one instance, and we do not want to assume that because where's the benefit of that? If we always have one work, one instance, we could just mesh it together in one record, just as we did in Mark.
Yeah, Jim, I think in the in some of the lead up conversations to this, when we were talking about adding two instances to one work, and I was saying that I was trying to change the has instance within the work record or add an additional has instance. And Jim, I think you said you can just delete that completely because it's not looking to the work record for which instances should be attached. It's looking completely at the instance record saying this is the work that I should be attached to. Is that accurate?
Right. I mean, I do remember us talking about this. Yeah, I think you've captured the spirit of it. I think well, basically, the API has gone through a little bit of change, even though it's new, even though it's only been around for like a year for people to use. we used to attach, it used to be like both like a belt and suspenders approach where we did point the work to an instance, but now the API does not require that your work points to an instance. And if it's not required, I would say don't put don't put it in because from the system standpoint, it's able to look at the instances and to see from the instance perspective what works it wants to point to. So we've either, I mean, choose your garment, we've removed the belt or removed the suspenders. I don't know which one. Not both, not both, just one. But yeah, the work, I mean, the work doesn't need to point to an instance. So I would leave that off.
Yeah, I would too, because it would continue the current practice from linking from the bottom up. So in the German-speaking countries, we link to we have for Lord of the Rings. There's one record for Lord of the Rings and 3 records for the 3 books, and the 3 books link to the mother by 830 or something. 800 it has to be in America. So we are linking from the child to the parent, and if you convert mark records to BibFrame, the link would already be there, but there are no links from the top down. So I think it would be a good idea to keep up linking from the bottom up for consistency.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's also exactly the way that it works when you're sending from Sinopia. You never send the work record from Sinopia. You only send the instance records. And so then the first instance record that you're sending kind of brings its work record along with it. And then if you're sending another instance that should be attached to the same work, then the work is already there in box.
All right. Why don't we move along to some additional questions that have come in here. We have someone who is asking, I hope this isn't too basic of a question. I'm not real familiar with APIs. Is the BibFrame API the same as the API console, or is there a separate thing that is the BibFrame API? If separate, where can that be found?
So I mean, from the API console that I'm working with, that I demonstrated, that API console can be used for any variety of portions of Alma. So it can link to updating holdings records. It can link to other acquisitions type modules, any part of Alma. So the API console is just kind of like the thing that sends the information, and then the second element, and I apologize, Jim, you can, and Stefan, you guys can fill in because I am not a technical person. The main thing is your API key that you're setting up. So it's the API key that's essentially the key in the lock saying this is the system that I want to make the connection with.
To specifically answer the question, is the BibFrame API the same as the API console? The API is just the API. The API console is one client to talk to the API, while Python scripts are another way to talk to the API, or Jim's notebook is a way to talk to the API, so is the API console. The API is always the same for BibFrame and for mark records. It's just another record type, which you can import and export into Alma. I hope I have said that understandably.
Maybe I could show this because what Stefan was just saying was here, this console is the client part here that is sending the request to Alma. And so, yeah, your client, the API console or a Python script or the Jupyter notebook, that's all client. And when we're creating, we use this post, and when we're updating, we use this put statement. Now, within the server, there are a list of routes, and actually, the create route, if you specify format bibframe, then it'll create, then it'll look for the XML for the bibframe. But if the format is mark, it's looking for, a different type. So this is like the model that I think is useful for understanding that. I know it's hard for me. It was hard for me to conceptualize this too, so that's why I wanted to put this in. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jim. So we're a little bit less than 10 minutes left, and we have still quite a few questions here. Let me move down here, and we will do our best to answer. We'll move questions into the Google Doc and share that back with you after this as best we can, if the volume of questions isn't too overwhelming. But we have a question from Sai Dang. To import BibFrame records to Alma, do we suppose to set up import profile in a similar way? The matching point would be the URI. Currently, updated instances in Sinopia won't get exported to our Alma sandbox. There's a no responses from the middleware message, apparently. I believe the records have the same URIs. So is this something that can be, happen to know what's going on to answer, or is this more troubleshooting?
Well, I think there might be more than one thing happening here. Well, I think, well, there's three question marks, but I think there's two questions. I think you don't need to set up an import profile. In fact, if you're using the Sinopia ILS middleware, it doesn't use an import profile. So yes, the matching point is the instance URI or the work URI. And yeah, that second part about it not getting exported, no response from the middleware. I mean, I think just reaching out to Callie or making a ticket on GitHub about, what URI are you trying to send in, and then just say the error, yeah, there that you're getting, and then I think their project manager Kelly could take a look at that.
All right. So there are several comments/questions from Laura Ackerman, but I'm not sure that they are directly answerable by this panel. So I'm going to skip on to the last question I see at the moment from Will Niarco. So just to get the general picture solid, Alma allows field validation, so syntax and required fields, authority linking, which can bring in URIs, enrichment rules, which may insert specific URIs during cataloging or jobs. That's not the same as saying Alma is capable of checking this URI against its authoritative source to ensure it's still valid, current, etc. Correct? Right? Sorry, editorializing. So I wonder how working with the existing Alma linked data functionality you've all demonstrated have helped shape how you've been thinking about using these new workflows and the functionalities to allow identifying, surfacing problematic records in the IZ, potentially cleaning them up to share in the CZ, just generally thinking about how linked data functionalities can assist in metadata repair, especially for institutions just starting out with Alma.
Well, yeah, So it does, I mean, not that I know of that it's checking. Um, I mean, this is a trick. This is a really tricky to answer because like we have, I mean, we have the the BibFrame work class and the BibFrame instance class, and within there we could have any number of linked data URIs. So I think what is more like checked in terms of sending data in is is the structure does the structure adhere to what the API is expecting? So yeah, it doesn't that I that I know I'm not familiar enough with the backend processes to know like what it's checking about against, but I do think that um, linked data does allow, I think what we're gonna see is like if we're reusing data, I think we have the possibility to get to a point where we can more easily have like higher quality metadata records. And I think because if we can reduce the amount of keying and use references, I think we'll in one regard we'll end up with something more structurally it'll have less chance to have like typos and things, so I do think we'll end up with cleaner metadata. But not only that, the representation, like in terms of like representation, one of the key differences in like BibFrame, RDF, and just compare like BibFrame RDF XML with Mark XML is that BibFrame is meant for reasoning over. And without talking anything about like Sparkle queries or anything like that, we're going to be able to have not just a description of a resource, but we actually have like we're actually representing knowledge that can be reasoned over. And I think it positions libraries really nicely with like the generative AI, which to me it seems like these generative AI agents are kind of what was initially kind of thought about in the semantic web discussions of different agents acting on um, these knowledge air these descriptions of knowledge that could be reasoned over. So I think we're going to be in a better position with RDF XML than just being able to have like you know um, than just Mark. So it's not a knock on Mark because I do like Mark, but I think we're able to reason over things, and that's kind of one of the key things that you can do with RDF XML is that reasoning.
All right. Either Stefan or Heather have anything to add? I don't I think that was our last question that we will get to during the webinar this afternoon or whatever time of day it is for you. There were a couple of questions in the Google Doc, and I apologize. I wasn't aware of them. Google stopped updating my copy of it, and I now see them. So sorry if I skipped over your question. As I said, I will see if we can come up with some responses to those in the Google Doc. We will be sharing the recording and the preparatory materials that were previously shared as soon as that is available with everyone who registered. Thank you all for attending, and thanks very much to Stefan, Heather, and Jim for sharing your expertise and your time with us this afternoon. Hope you've all gotten something out of this. I certainly have. And I think with that, we will say farewell and look forward to seeing you at the next community event that we hold. Thank you.
Thanks all.